So I'm reading through the CES letter, and my four-time great grandmother's name is in it. And I was like, I know this person. Like, this is not some. Like I had a lot invested, and to have it kind of all be pulled out from underneath me was really, it was just so depressing. And by the time we hit like the end of the Old Testament, like my heart was already starting to shift and change. I felt God saying, Kai, like I want to be back in a relationship with you. And me just being like, nope, like that's in my own.
And if you could pick maybe one or two things that you found the most problematic, which things would you kind of put up there at the top of the list?
Well, I want to give context to what makes it problematic. So you have the truth claims of the church, which are, I know that the church is true. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet. I know that the Book of Mormon is the word of God, right? Like all of these claims, I'm not expecting my leadership to be perfect. I'm not expecting my pastor to be perfect. I'm not expecting myself to be perfect. But when you say, hey, this person is a prophet of God, this person is the Lord's mouthpiece, and then you find things that are problematic that person said, and definitely that person did. And your whole life you were told that this person has done more for mankind than anyone else except for Jesus, right? It's a pretty shocking thing to come across really negative things about the person that you believe was the prophet of the Lord. So I'm reading through the CES letter, and my four-time great grandmother's name is in it. And I was like, I know this person. Like, this is not some distant person that we're hearing about from, that's unrelated to me. Like, this is my grandmother. And the story of her really being trapped by the prophet, it says that she like tried to run away on her 18th birthday. She was first propositioned, and then on her 19th birthday again for marriage from Joseph Smith. She got married to Joseph Smith that night. Joseph Smith's wife, Emma, didn't know about it. And later she gave permission, whatever that means, after the fact. And they have a second sham wedding. It's like, that's not the way that polygamy was pitched to me. But it was like consenting people, no power imbalance, like just normal courting, and you add another wife. I'm not trying to say it's acceptable, but I'm just saying, and I think in a way you can almost tolerate that. But under these circumstances of being dishonest to your spouse, I was just like, no, like that is so wrong. Book of Abraham is really like another reason, and I think is pretty is really problematic in the Pearl of Great Price. Brigham Young's really problematic figure. There's just a lot of problems, and I think when you make the claim, hey, we are the one true church, and these are prophets who are literally talking with God, the things that they get from God need to be perfect. I'm sorry. Like it's an absolute, and you can't walk it back once they're wrong and say, or once they make really bad moral character issues. Like you can't walk it back and be like, well, they kind of are doing, they can still be doing God's work and be living really very, very sinfully and be wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah, one thing that kind of that I'm sure you've experienced a little bit when interacting with Latter-day Saints and kind of talking about these problematic teachings or even conflicting teachings of from one prophet to the next is they will say, "Oh, that was a mistake. No one's perfect. Hey, just give him some grace, Kai. Come on." But
Yeah.
the thing that like you can't point to anywhere in the Bible and say, "Oh, Moses or the Apostle Paul or Isaiah, they taught false things about God." Like, show me anywhere in the Bible where prophets of God or apostles of God taught false things about God. It's not in there. But as you pointed out, there's a number of things that prophets of the LDS Church, apostles of the LDS Church, and it wasn't just an off the cuff response and like a little interaction. This was at journal is in the Journal of Discourses. This is at General Conference where they're making these things where they plan out what they're going to say. They apparently pray about it. They spend time meditating on the teaching that they're going to lead the church to believe, and it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. And I think the temple is really the number like, and I didn't know any of this, right? But the temple is where things have changed so much, like from what the original endowment was to what it is now and how watered down it is now. If you just look at all of the changes that have happened in there, it's not the same endowment that Joseph Smith gave or that Brigham Young gave. It's a totally different animal, and it's like, well, that's like this quote unquote pure, revelation from God. That should not change at all, right? Like that, if you honestly believe that, and that's like you believe in this revelation, um, there aren't things that should change. There aren't parts of it that once one prophet dies, you're like, oh, we got to yank that out of there. Like it should be tried and true from them. So yeah, I think that they put way too much emphasis on these men, and I feel like Jesus is leveraged as a like get out of jail free card. And I don't know how far you want to go down that like bunny trail, but I think whenever they're kind of called out on the rug, it's like, well, God is telling us and we still believe in Jesus, and we still like Jesus is a tool that is used to kind of give validity to the movement. And I kind of find that um problematic, I guess, to say
Mhm.
the least.
So now you're kind of coming across the CES letter and learning some things that are kind of causing your faith to shake. What happens next?
Yeah, so it's like a middle of the week, like a Wednesday or Thursday or something. And I stayed up all night, read the whole CES letter, and I'm like pretty shook. And I drive home middle of the week. I show up at my house, and my wife like looks at me and she's like, "What are you doing here? Like, why are you home?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got tired. I don't know, I made up some excuse." I said, "Oh, I got tired." She's like, "No, that's not right. Like you've never come like she was expecting to see me on midnight on Saturday night, right? And get ready for church the next morning." Um and so I just I just kept researching and kept researching and kept researching, and studied, you know, uh, I guess anti-Mormon as much as I possibly could, and really like wanted to confirm or deny. Like I really wanted the church to be true. That would have been probably the best way for me to go, would be for the Mormon church to be true. I have so much invested. I mean, I wanted to refute the things that I saw in there. But that was the problem, is the more that I researched it, the more I was like, oh, like this is awful too. And this isn't good too. And it became worse. Like when I went to the source documents and I would read like, well, maybe it's out of context. I'd read all the context. I'd be like, oh, this is so bad. So I would say I went to a really dark and depressive, state. My whole life, I had just been in this, and I don't go into things like halfway. Like I don't like casually do things. Like I was all in. I had friends that I talked to about the gospel. I had people that I reactivated back into the church and went to watch them get married in the temple. Like I had a lot invested, and to have it kind of all be pulled out from underneath me was really, it was just so depressing. And so like I became so nihilistic, with that. And I mean, I could talk forever on that time and telling my parents and how terrible that was. But I think it's important to just say that like I was not, it was probably the worst time. It was so bad that people who were Christian, like a family member of mine who is a Episcopal Christian, said, "You know what, Kai, this has been awful. Maybe you should go back to the Mormon Church. Like you're in a very bad place mentally. You should, I mean, I think they were saying that out of love because they saw how how bad I was after leaving. So it's just really really hard. So anyway, so at the time, yeah, it was really tough. So my wife though wanted to continue in Christianity, and I was really against that idea of her and taking my kids to what I saw was, another flavor of the same thing I had been involved with as I thought. Um, and so, but she went every Sunday, and I felt like I should go. I felt, an obligation to go with my family. And so I started to go. My son, who was turning 8, decided to get baptized, and he was always going to get baptized in the Mormon Church. And then I had this faith crisis at the same time. And so he ends up getting baptized into a Christian church, which I was a little bothered by. I thought was I was not very happy with that. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm searching, right? So part of my son getting baptized is I said, okay, that's fine if you want to be Christian, that's okay. But I want you to know what you believe. And so part of his faith, part of this is me and my son read the Christian Standard Bible from Genesis to Revelation. So we read over 1,400 pages every single night. And we read the Bible, and I can't say that my heart and my attitude was very good as I was reading it to him, but I wanted him to like have a background for what he just committed to. And so we read the Bible by the time we hit like the end of the Old Testament, like my heart was already starting to shift and change by the time we hit the New Testament. But, there were so many people that like God put in my path, and you could say that, well, yeah, you're going to a Christian church. I mean, maybe that happens. But I do feel that God, divinely put people into my path, people who were open and transparent and who were normal people that had struggles and that they were open about sharing like, hey, I've been through this. And I think that really like none of them had the same experience as me, but all of them wanted to preach the gospel to me in a way. And I remember I would sit there in church. So I go to a Pentecostal church, Assemblies of God church, and I would sit there in church, and I remember everyone is like into it, right? Pentecostals, they got the hands up. Come on, people are singing, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. And I would step out a lot and go out in the hallway and not really participate, but I wanted to, be there to support my family. But there were times where I felt God saying, Kai, like I want to be back in a relationship with you. Like I want you to know me and be in a relationship with me. And me just being like, nope, like that's in my own head. Like that's something that internally I'm like, and so I felt myself being really, really resistant to the idea of a relationship with God. I feel like I'd been burned, and so it was pretty tough. And that started to change like when I don't know. I just started to look at my life and I started to say, like, Kai, are you going to be angry and bitter at the church for the rest of your life? And is that going to be your defining thing? Like, is that going to be what you do? Or are you going to move on, whatever that looks like,
Real quick, if this video is blessing you, would you just do me a favor and subscribe to the channel? That would really help get the word out about this ministry. Thank you so much for your support.
you know, and and figure out religion and figure out faith and all of those things. And so I don't know. I always had those questions with myself, like, and then I started to accept that maybe there was a God. I think that was kind of a first step. Like, yeah, there's probably a God. Okay, well then, how is he trying to communicate with us, and how can reach him? And me being saved is not a climactic story. It is literally me sitting through church every Sunday and my heart slowly being changed, like slowly being softened, from being really, really hard. And and there were times where I said, God, I want to be back in a relationship with you, but I'm standing in the way. And then I finally said, I want to accept Jesus again. So Easter of 2022, I accepted Jesus again, and became born again and saved. And I'm really grateful for the people, like all the people around me that God put in my life to kind of like create an environment where I could accept Jesus. I think that's I believe in the local church. I think that there's a lot of healing. I think there's a lot of people that want to reach out to others in the local church, and that was really, I think that community really helped me during a really hard time, and they kind of took me as I was, which was a not very I'm an outspoken person, a not very happy outspoken person about religion. They took me in on that. So
That's really cool. It's amazing how God used your 8-year-old son and you're motivated to teach him, but then God used that to teach you about him. Like he used your son to get you into his word, to teach you and draw him to himself.
yeah, definitely. Like, and it's funny because we read the whole Old Testament with me having a really bad attitude, right? Like we read what is it, 1,000 pages or something with me, and then like it's crazy how your heart begins to soften. And what if your faith in God could become greater than it's ever been? I think that would be great. Like, I think that would be awesome if my faith was greater than it had ever been. Like from this point on, because it was so dark, right? It was so dark that like that gave me just a little bit of hope of like, oh, that'd be interesting. Like I felt so good. Like I felt like life was great when I felt at least connected to God in some respect. So
hmm So one of the big differences, obviously, between the Mormon Church and mainstream Christianity is who is Jesus and what's the gospel. As you were kind of going through the Bible again with your son, what would you say now with where you're at now are some of the biggest differences that kind of caused your beliefs to change in those two fields?
yeah, so my theology is I would say that the thing that changed theologically is I was able to strip away all of kind of this outside stuff that's taught in the church and focus purely on Jesus, right? Like, I think that's where I honestly feel the church uses Jesus as a tool. It's one part of a lot of different teachings. And I think to strip all of that away, I think was really helpful, and just have it be strictly about Jesus. All of the other, like, very dogmatic doctrinal things of the church, like, I'm still trying to process getting rid of those in my life. Like, I'll just be honest, I'm not, like, my theology is not perfect, and I've spent 30 years learning one way of doing things, and I'm trying to kind of change that theology, change the way that my mind is wired. And I think that's really hard, and I think that's a process. Like, I think I'll be doing that, I don't know for how long. Trying to continually learn and do that. I do have a favorite Bible verse, and it's 2 Timothy 1:7, and it's God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I mean, that's been kind of a guiding Bible verse for me through my adult life, through uh, a lot of things that I've done. But I remember how fearful I was when I first left the church. Like, when I first had that first meeting with my bishop, I had absolutely no idea where I was going to go with faith. I had no idea what that's going to look like, and I was fearful. Like, I was fearful of what's going to happen to me after I die. Like, what's going to happen to my kids, because we're leaving this religious system that I know and understand, and I think creates good people. What am I going to do with all of these things? And I remember being so fearful of leaving. And I don't know, that's just been, I think when you're able to say, okay, I'm not like, when you have a relationship with Jesus, like, that fear can go away, and you don't feel afraid of what's going to happen next. You're not like, you can kind of trust in the promises of, well, your kids will bring a kid up in the way that he should go, and he won't depart from it. Right. And so I think that those things are really good, and just eliminating that fear, and I mean, there's so many. A buddy of mine texted me about my podcast, and he said, Kai, how can you be resentful? Like, I have a great life. I'll just be honest. I have a great life. And he said, all things will work together for your good. Right. I mean, that's a promise that we have. Right. And so there's all of these, and it's like, it's easy to hold on to the past. That's the wrong word. It's maybe our tendency to hold on to the past, but I feel like I had to let go of that and start a whole new thing, and just, like, look at the process and say, okay, I am right with God, and all of these things, I got to try to figure out how, but they're all going to work together for my good. I just came to that realization yesterday. So things change, I'm constantly changing in this process. So
Mm-hmm. You mentioned like how the LDS church, they kind of like, it's almost like they raise their members up with the mentality of it's either the LDS church or nothing. For anyone who's watching this who has either left the LDS church or is thinking about leaving because they might feel lied to or burned by religion and now wants nothing to do with God, what message might you invite these people to consider?
the Mormon Church does not have a monopoly on good people. They do not have a monopoly on community. They have a monopoly on a few ideas that they can't back up. But, like, my church community, I absolutely love. Like, I think it is great. I feel a lot more I had a lot of guilt and shame while in the church. I feel like freed from that. I feel that there's a lot of healing that can happen in the local church. There's a lot of healing that can happen in a relationship with Jesus outside of the Mormon Church. And I want to be like hopeful, like, and I feel like sometimes this can be a comparison game. Like, oh, I was so much happier, I'm so much happier now than I was in the church or what. And I'm not even, I just think that there is so much hope and there's so many good things outside of the church. There's so many institutions for take like BYU. Well, there's great colleges for Christians, or the tightness inside a ward. I remember going to my church for the first time and being like, I don't know any of these people. This place is huge. So I go to a church with probably 1,000 people Sunday morning. But the longer you're in there, you really get you form relationships with people, and there is a really good community. I mean, there's a really strong, and these people are not fair weather Christians. Like, these people truly believe and set their life on Jesus and on good moral things. I think finding the right church and being involved in it is really powerful and can really help people heal.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. And to anyone listening, make sure to go out and check out Kai's podcast. You can find it on Spotify. And again, it's called Jesus for Mormons. He goes into a lot more detail than what we've discussed today. Both he and his co-host Dai do a fantastic job of breaking down different aspects of Kai's personal journey as he chose to follow Jesus out of the LDS Church. Kai, to wrap up, would you mind closing us in prayer?
Yeah, that's great. Dear God, we are grateful that we get to talk about my journey, and then we get to talk about where I went with my faith in you. We are grateful that whoever is listening to this, we're grateful that it's finding them. We hope that it will find those who are lost, those who feel lied to and feel that they can't trust religious people. We hope that this finds them, and that you will do what you promised, that you will get them and you'll put them on your shoulders and you will bring them back to the fold. We do all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for your time today, brother, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, man.
You will never fade away. Your love is here to stay by the side of my life, shining through me every day. You will never fade away. Your love is here to stay by the side of my life, shining through me every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back.
Hold on here. Hold on.
Okay.
We gotta pray first, dude.
Oh, okay.
At least I gotta pray. If you don't mind.
Okay. It would be terrible if I did not record this.
Oh, yeah. Do we have enough battery? Hold on. Let me make sure. Let's go. God is on our side today. You saw how messy my desk was. My camera's bothering me, and you're gonna be like, this guy is nuts. But I'm just, yeah.
Wake within me, wake within me.